Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Jordan Spurgeon. Thank you for joining us. COVID-19 has claimed more than 800,000 lives in the U.S. alone. With all of that loss comes grief and the need for support. Cronkite News health reporter Camila Williams talked with 3 women about how different organizations have helped them begin to heal and move forward.
Tara Krebs will always remember her father as the fun guy in the family.
He was adventurous. He bought me a book once, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and that's really how he lived his life.
After COVID-19 was declared a pandemic, her father, Charles, took all the right precautions, but it wasn't enough to keep him from getting sick.
He was in the hospital for 6 weeks.
And after those 6 weeks, a doctor gave them some news they were not prepared to hear.
The first thing he said was, you know, your father's a very sick man and he's probably not going to make it. Which I wasn't aware of. I just thought in my head at that time, he's on a ventilator, his lungs are going to heal, he's just going to rest. So I looped my mom in and they got us ready to lose my dad.
After Tara's father passed away in July of 2020, she felt lost and alone. Then she heard about Marked by COVID, an organization that helps advocate for families whose loved ones have died from the disease.
I finally felt like someone saw me and understood what I was going through.
Marked by COVID co-founder Kristen Muir grew up in Maryvale and lost her father to COVID in June of 2020. The grassroots group has members across the nation and continues to grow.
We had just literally thousands of people reaching out to us saying, thank you for speaking up. I feel exactly the same way as you. And it was that sort of realization that we were giving voice to the voiceless in a really meaningful way.
Urquiza says one goal of the organization is holding government officials accountable for their handling of the pandemic, including reopening too soon and opposing mask mandates. Urquiza says such policies contributed to her father's death.
Because of his choices and the information, misinformation, disinformation he received, led him to believe that it was safe to start gathering.
With the help of Arizona U.S. Representative Greg Stanton, Marked by COVID is pushing to make March 1st COVID-19 Victims and Survivors Memorial Day to remember the lives lost to COVID and acknowledge the widespread loss felt by those left behind. Angelica Baker from Tucson said that other organizations like COVID Survivors for Change helped her through her grief journey after losing her father in May 2020.
They knew exactly where I was at that time. They knew that everybody understood. It was just kind of unspoken that we were all alone with our grief. But then at that time when we would meet on Thursday nights, it's like we were all a family. We all got it.
Camila Williams, Cronkite News.
With the holiday season here, Marked by COVID has started a program called the COVID Card Exchange, where someone can send sympathy cards to those who need some extra support. For more information, go to markedbycovid.com/cards. A law enforcement union has filed a lawsuit challenging a new health insurance surcharge. Pima County employees who have not been vaccinated against COVID-19 have to pay the surcharge. The Arizona Conference of Police and Sheriff's Union says that the surcharge, which began on November 1st, is unfair. They say unvaccinated county employees are facing a difficult decision: get the vaccine or shoulder the costs of additional payments. Despite personal or medical concerns, the surcharge took effect on November 1st. Meanwhile, the city of Phoenix voted 6-3 yesterday to approve bonuses to eligible city employees who have already received a COVID vaccine. The bonuses, which go up to $2,000, is part of the $29 million the city is spending from its federal COVID relief funding. According to the city of Phoenix, all eligible full-time employees will receive a $500 bonus, and those fully vaccinated by January 18th will get an extra bonus of $1,500. The move was made to encourage more people to get vaccinated, as COVID-19 cases are beginning to surge across the state. Although the vote comes after the decision to halt the vaccine mandate, Dan Wilson at the City of Phoenix Communications Office says the incentive to get vaccinated is not a replacement for the mandate. The vote was scheduled for December 1st council meeting, but was pushed back because of the changes with the mandate. The Suns are looking to make another title run this year, but before the season started, the team paid tribute to its past. Cronkite News reporter Jaden Sormani has the story on a legendary coach who was inducted in the Hall of Fame 17 years after his passing.
Cotton Fitzsimmons is one of the most iconic coaches in Phoenix Suns history. Few may realize how much impact the two-time NBA Coach of the Year had on the franchise, given the fact he passed away 17 years ago. But his widow, Joanne Fitzsimmons, has kept Cotton's legacy alive. Her dedication paid off as Fitzsimmons received the ultimate honor of being enshrined in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, class of 2021.
Gosh, why didn't this happen sooner? But the one thing that really just made me feel so good about this is July 24th marked 17 years since he passed away. And how fabulous is it that after 17 years, he hasn't been forgotten.
In my next life, I'm gonna come back as an official and straighten that mess out.
I couldn't have been more pleased, as chairman of the Basketball Hall of Fame, to have been a part of that, and to honor Cotton, my dear friend, meant a great deal to a lot of people.
Someone being inducted to the Hall of Fame, you can go on the accolades of or the accomplishments of what they did in the sport, but it's also who they are, and if that's it, he wins on both levels.
Fitzsimmons won 832 games during his 21-year NBA coaching career, including 3 different stints with the Suns. As a master motivator, he led the 1990 Suns past Magic Johnson's LA Lakers on their way to the Western Conference Finals.
He was never satisfied, but was not a bad thing. Like, yeah, it was always an inspiring thing. Like, you guys are better than you're better than you think you are. And when we would get together and talk about it as a team, yeah, we should be.
All they see is the guy on the floor screaming and hollering at us as we're playing. But they didn't understand that I would go to dinner with him. He would call me often to check on me, make sure I was doing the right things off the court. And that's what a coach is all about.
Upon his retirement from coaching shortly into the 1996 season, Fitzsimmons had the 6th most wins in NBA history. He also spent time as an executive and broadcaster. Cotton's colorful personality connected him with every person he came in contact with.
Our relationship was a long, long-lasting relationship, and I had great respect for him. He had accomplished an awful lot as a head coach. He was one of the most positive people I've ever met in my life.
And those relationships continue with his wife, Joanne.
As I told him a long time ago, I'm going to always be there for his wife, Joanne, and always checking on her to make sure she's good, because that's how he really, I think, took care of me. When I was away from my mom, he treated me like a son.
One of my favorite things is a sign that I have hanging over the doorway to my laundry room that said, and it kind of summarizes, I think, our lives in the NBA. And it says, we didn't realize we were making memories, we just knew we were having fun.
That fun resulted in her claim that every day was a honeymoon. She can now rejoice that his legacy forever lives on. Her Cotton Fitzsimmons is now Hall of Fame. In Phoenix, Jaden Swarmani, Cronkite Sports Report.
And now, here's a look back at some of the top stories from our Cronkite Sports Bureau.
Kristen Muir is known locally as the first female athlete to score a point in an AIA state championship game back in 2015. In January, the former kicker was partially paralyzed in a car accident. Now Muir is back on the field at Marcos de Niza High School. Zach Larson took a trip over to Tempe and took a look at how she's inspiring others.
Kristen Muir was told she may never walk again, but through her hard work and determination, she made sure that wasn't an option. Now, the former high school kicker is helping others by coaching the game she loves.
She runs a tight ship, and you know, she grew up around it. She was part of that team that got to go to the state championship, and she knows what it takes.
She perseveres in what she does, and seeing her Instagram and stuff, if you go and follow it, you can see her pushing herself. So it makes you want to push yourself, and I feel like all the guys are benefiting from that.
Muir's return to the sidelines wasn't the only surprise, as the Arizona Cardinals announced a scholarship that provides $3,000 to 10 graduating student athletes, one of which is in her name. She even gets to pick the recipient. It's an honor Muir wasn't expecting.
I was really surprised at first. I didn't think that it was going to be as huge. And so at first it didn't hit me like at all. But now I'm like, wow, this will be like a legacy kind of thing. And I'm really excited to be helping out athletes around Arizona.
Kristen's father, who is also an assistant coach on the team, is proud of what she's been able to do since her recovery.
I think that's a fantastic legacy, and if that's how her name goes down and how she's remembered at the end of the day, then then that's all you can hope for as a father.
Not only is Kristen inspiring others while coaching on the field, she's hoping to kick one through the uprights again in the near future.
Oh yeah, it's gonna happen. My therapist said within 5 months we'll do it. Yesterday, actually, with my kicker, I tried kicking one, and I got some height on it, so it was really nice. So yeah, it's definitely gonna happen.
For now, Kristen will continue to coach as she looks to inspire others for years to come. In Tempe, Zachary Larson, Cronkite News.
Top prospects from all 30 MLB teams have come to play in the Arizona Fall League. After a canceled season last year, players have a new appreciation for this opportunity.
When thinking of fall baseball, you generally think of the World Series. However, up-and-coming MLB stars get their chance to shine in the Arizona Fall League.
I think it's just the next step in the process. You know, the competition is good, and so showing that you can be consistent against this level of competition shows that you're one step ready or closer to being ready for the big leagues.
One big difference in Fall League baseball is that your rivals are now your teammates. Each team consists of players from 5 different organizations. With common goals of making it to the bigs, egos do not get in their way.
There's no rivalry here. It's fantastic. I mean, the guys I met, I was very surprised. There are no egos in our clubhouse. Everybody gets along really well. We're all just kind of, brothers in arms kind of here. We're all marching towards the same goal. We realize we might be teammates, one day, and if we compete against each other, so be it.
It may seem like baseball in Arizona never ends, but for these players in the Fall League, they say they'll never take playing the game they love for granted.
We're grateful to be back, that's for sure. I think every guy in the locker room can say that. Even though this year for a lot of us has been long with a ton of games played, we've enjoyed every moment of this.
It has been over a month since the Fall League started, and each team has played nearly 30 games. But the players wouldn't want it any other way.
Well, this is what we love to do. I wouldn't rather be anywhere in the world right now than playing baseball here in the Fall League.
The future of baseball plays in the Arizona Fall League, and pretty soon, some of these guys could be playing in a big league park near you. In Scottsdale, Cam Dyer, Cronkite News.
Carl Hayden High School's once struggling football program is making a comeback with its first winning season in 25 years. And as Cronkite News reporter Evan Oshowitz found out, the players responsible for the Falcons' comeback season aren't who you'd expect.
Ready, go! Carl Hayden Community High School is in the midst of its best football season since the mid-1990s. Led by third-year head coach Steven Arenas, the Falcons have found success with a hard-nosed, run-heavy playing style, and the school has begun to embrace the team once again.
This year, now that we're winning home games, everyone's coming out, so everybody's feeling the football culture like we are.
It's just been so supportive, so cool. I've been here since 2016 as an assistant, and just to see the progression every single year, that's been really rewarding for us.
Many of the Falcons' best players, like rushing leader Kendre Pride and sacks leader Jordan Talbert, are multi-sport athletes who didn't originally plan on playing football. But their contributions are leading the way for Carl Hayden's Renaissance year.
There were some things over at Chavez that I didn't like, and my basketball coach became the head coach over here at Carl Hayden. And at first I was going to be a strictly basketball player, but I decided to play football.
As a result of their contributions, both Pride, a sophomore, and Talbert, a senior, have garnered plenty of attention from Division I schools. And with the amount of talent waiting in the wings for Carl Hayden, it's unlikely they'll be the last ones to get on recruiters' radars.
This year, we might had the most freshmen on Carl Hayden football team there ever been in history. So we have freshmen that are coming up to play with us next year, and we have freshmen that were also injured this year that y'all didn't get to see.
That's one of the biggest things I told our athletic director in getting the job is just giving our kids an opportunity to get out to the next level, getting college coaches on campus. We got some kids who can play ball and get them opportunities to get an education.
Carl Hayden won't be in the playoffs this year, but a 500 season is a sign of immense progress for the program, and the best may be yet to come for these young Falcons. In Phoenix, Evan Oshowitz, Cronkite News.
Carl Hayden just missed the playoffs, but are excited to build on this year's success.
The Coyotes opened the preseason last night with a 2-1 victory over the LA Kings. The Yotes have a very different looking team from the one that took the ice last season. Evan Osherwitz examined some of the team's roster changes and what kind of impact they could have.
When the Coyotes opened their regular season schedule on October 14th, 5 of their 6 everyday defensemen will be new to the team. Jacob Chychrun is the only returner from last season, and whether or not he can repeat his 18-goal, 41-point performance will depend on whether or not he can adapt to playing with a new partner.
Our group of guys we brought in this year, we've all been skating together for a while. We've been doing kind of little team stuff. I think we've done a good job of it so far. It does feel like I've known a lot of the guys for a while, and I haven't.
Arizona's forward group will also have plenty of new faces. Christian Dvorak and Connor Garland have moved on to different teams, which means players like Christian Fischer and Nick Schmaltz will have to fill the void left by their departures.
No secret, there's 15, 16 new guys in this locker room, and change is scary, but it's fun. I think it's fun to see new faces, new personalities, new coach, pretty much a whole new everything.
It's a great opportunity for everybody. I think we got guys trying to take the next step in their careers, and guys are going to get more opportunities, whether it's playing time or different situations. So I think guys can take a step in that way, and be one of the go-to guys, and get to play minutes that maybe you didn't get to play before.
The Coyotes have only a few weeks until opening night to build cohesion, and their ability to do so may end up determining their results this season. In Glendale, Evan Osherwitz, Cronkite News.
The Coyotes face the Ducks tomorrow night in another preseason matchup. They start the regular season in Columbus on October 14th.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. Next on Break It Down, we take a look at the lack of gender and racial equality within the music industry. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Break It Down is brought to you in part by Mayo Clinic and viewers like you.
Hey, Mako, thank you for breaking down Black women in the recording industry. Now, you've written about the fact that the music industry is just completely unraveled. Tell me more about that sort of breakdown, if you will.
Absolutely. So from the mid-1900s on, the music industry, it's radically changed, right? Primarily due to shifts in the organization of the industry and markets themselves. So think about the 1950s, right? And the way that radio moved from this sort of single national market to these localized markets. And this really gave small independent labels and record producers the opportunity to compete. So indie labels were signing Black artists, and their music were making their way to radio and thus the American market. And so by the mid-70s, the majors kind of took that power back, right? And primarily through large scale manufacturing and distribution and really access, right? So in the 70s, we saw this re-monopolizing of radio and television that really allowed major record companies to dominate. But of course, all of this came crashing down in the 90s, right? With the advent of streaming music. We know in 1999, Napster was developed, piracy was sort of innovated. And by the end of 2013, the sales of physically distributed record music, so CDs, vinyls, cassette, just plummeted, right? And so if we think about today, who dominates, what companies dominate, right? Apple Music is the #1 distributor of music, and Apple is not a recording company.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
So by 2013, iTunes was the world's largest retail producer. And so today we're used to getting our music from spaces like Tidal and Spotify, and some of us still listen to Pandora. Right. So streaming music has really sort of held the recording industry. But last year was interesting, right? So since about 2015, the industry has started to sort of pick back up in terms of sales, after about 2 decades of decline. And so again, it's streaming music. People want to get their music quick. So the global streaming revenues were up 42% since 2015. With streaming, it really allows artists and composers to have a certain level of freedom. Not to say that they're completely free from the influence of recording companies, but it has allowed artists to take back some of the control with respect to distribution. And
also they have a direct connection to people.
Absolutely.
There's no middleman, right?
That's right. That's right. It's really changed how people, it's changed the music listening experience, right? It's not about just going to your record store and buying that album and listening to it from start to finish, right? Artists and composers have really turned to what's become known as a context-focused model in creating the work that they create. So rather than making these really polished recordings, they've sort of created services and practices that really revolve around an experience that audiences and listeners can have.
Even though music is more likely to be streamed directly to consumers or listeners like you and I, there's still an element of who controls new music, like who controls like new artists who are even signed. So tell me about the role of Black women as artists in the music industry, even in this digital age, this streaming age, but then also the role of Black women as the production owners of new music.
Well, in the last few years, this topic of women in music has become much more, I guess you could say, salient and popularized. So there have been several studies done in the last few years that really ask these questions that you're bringing up, right? So in 2019, there was a study that was put out by the Berklee College of Music and Women in the Music, and it was led by my colleague, Erin Barajan, in the ASU School of Music, Dance, and Theater. And that study found that out of 2,000 women who were working in the music industry in 2018, 77% identified as white, 10% identified as Hispanic or Latinx, 6% African American, and 4% Asian. So in terms of representation of women in the music industry, Black women are still sorely underrepresented.
And you said Black women are 6% of the recording industry.
Absolutely. And between about 2012 to 2017, women of color writ large were just under 17% representation. And so, what's interesting though is during that time period, the top 2 female solo artists were Nicki Minaj and Rihanna, right?
Black women. Okay.
Black women. Right? The 3 most successful artists across this 6-year time period were people of color. However, only 2 of about 640 producers were women of color. And that was identified in a study that was done by USC's Annenberg Inclusion Initiative. So, these studies are really important because they give us the data that allows us to make this argument that representation is sorely lacking.
In closing, what would you recommend for struggling artists or even people in the business who want to increase representation?
One of the biggest, I would say, advances most recently, primarily we could say due to the multiple pandemics of 2020, has been the sort of increased presence of Black women in DEI-related positions across the music industry. And that movement to inclusivize the music industry has really shed light on the sort of repressive work climate conditions for music for women working in music, women working in studios during unconventional times of the day, working in non-safe spaces, right? These are issues that are now being talked about, being addressed by spaces like the Recording Academy and others. We're seeing more Black women represented in unconventional Black genres. So the number of Black women in country music has increased, right? Mickey Guyton this year was the first Black woman to co-host the Academy of Country Music Awards. And so we're seeing the representation of Black women move outside of just the conventional genres of R&B, rap, hip hop, and popular. And now we're seeing more Black women represented in country. I'm excited by the increased scholarship of Black academics, women like Maureen Mann and Daphne Brooks, whose most recent books really feature this history and legacy of Black women. So it's important that we are archiving the contributions of Black women in music. I think about Danielle Smith's work. She just,
her podcast,
her podcast is dynamic. She just curated that 100 most iconic albums on Zora's Music Canon. So really, just if you are a musician, seeing this as a time to thrive, as a time to set boundaries around the things that you need to excel in the music industry, because the industry is changing and doors are opening for Black women.
Well, that's great to hear. Well, thank you, Mako. Thanks for breaking down Black women in the recording industry.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you. If you have comments about Arizona PBS News, please contact us at one of the addresses on your screen. Thank you.